Forget the average super balance. Seriously, that's probably the most dangerous number in all of finance, and it's setting many Australians up for a pretty shitty retirement. So if you want a genuinely comfortable retirement, there's a whole different set of numbers that you need to be shooting for. And that's what we're going to cover in this video. We're going to talk about the super balances that you should have at age 30, 40 and 50 to have an absolute baller retirement. We're also going to cover off some tips for catching up if you've fallen behind. But firstly, be honest. Do you know where your super needs to be? For some of the young ones watching this video, you probably don't care that much. But for those of us that are old enough to have a good knee and a bad knee as opposed to a left and right, you might want to pay a bit more attention. But here's the thing, if you're shooting for average, that's exactly what you're going to have. Average. Not necessarily the retirement that you want. Do you just want to scrape by? Or do you want to be able to spend money and really enjoy your twilight years? So today we're going to cut through all that noise. We're going to ignore the averages and target the real numbers that you need to be shooting for. These figures are based on detailed modelling on a comfortable retirement standard as defined by the ASFA. So whether you're 25 or 55, stick around because we're going to be plotting a path to a secure financial future. So let's first tear down this idea of the average super balance. You'll see data from the ATO everywhere about this. But if we look at 2023-24, it looks a little bit like this. The average balance for a man aged 30 to 34 is around 53,000. For a female, it's around 44. For those aged 40 to 44, it's about 132,000 for men and about 102,000 for women. Now, you might look at those balances and think, I'm not too far off, I'll be all right. But those averages are skewed significantly by a few individuals with massive super balances. I'll illustrate this with a quick example. Imagine there's 9 people in a room. Each of them have a super balance of $50,000, but there's one individual that has a super balance of $5 million. Now, the average super balance in that room now is $500,000. But does that reflect the reality for the other 9 people in that room? Absolutely not. And that's why using the median super balance is a much more honest reflection of this issue. And that's the person that's in the exact middle of that lineup. And those figures, they paint a much more concerning picture. The median balance for a man aged 40 to 44 was about $101,000, and for women, $74,000. Way below the skewed average. And this is the average trap. It makes us complacent and doesn't actually tell us what we need. So let's agree to forget the average. It's a vanity metric anyway. And let's focus on the numbers you actually need to know. And that's the gap between where you are now and where you need to be. We'll start with your 30s, arguably the most powerful decade for your super. Based on modelling for a comfortable retirement, you need to be targeting a super balance of $66,500 at age 30 and $111,500 at age 35. Let that sink in for a second, because the average 30-year-old has nowhere near that. And that's the gap we need to look at closing. So why are your 30s just so important for building your super balance? It comes down to 2 words: compound interest. This is your golden decade for growth, because every dollar you put into your super has 30 or 40 years to work for you. I'm going to illustrate this with a quick example. If you invest $1,000 at age 40, with the average market return, it'll grow to about $6,700, or about a 7x return. That's not bad. But if you repeat that exact same example, but invest at age 30, that same $1,000 grows to $17,500. That's a 17x return. That's about 2.5 times more, just because compounding interest has had more time to do its work. Simply, the earlier you invest a dollar, the more time that dollar has to work for you. Think of it like planting a tree. The earlier you plant it, the bigger it will grow. Your money's no different. And if you miss this growth period in your 30s, you're going to have to work harder in your 40s and 50s to catch up. And that means putting bigger and bigger chunks of money into your super. So if you're not at that mark, don't panic, but do take action and consider doing these 3 things. Consolidate your super. Around 4 million Australians have multiple super accounts. This includes lost super accounts that they don't even know about. In fact, the ATO estimates they have about $19 billion of lost super presently sitting in their accounts. That's money that could be working for you. I've actually done a more detailed video on this, on how you can find your lost super and get that money working for you. I'll leave a link for that down in the description below. Secondly, check your investment options. Most people are under the default option, and these are usually a mix of growth assets like shares and properties, as well as defensive assets like cash and bonds. Now, historically, the returns of shares well and truly outpace things like fixed interest. However, they do come with a degree of risk. But in your 30s, you have time on your side and you can afford to take more risk and generate higher returns. And over the long term, this can mean the difference of hundreds of thousands of dollars in your retirement account. Take action and go see how your super is presently invested. It might surprise you. Start small voluntary contributions. Seriously, even an extra 20 or 50 bucks a week can make a serious difference when you factor compound interest over the long term. Set up a recurring payment for your bank account. I very much doubt you'll miss the money and your 67-year-old self will thank you immensely. If you're finding this video helpful or even just a little bit interesting, please hit the like button and consider subscribing. It really helps out the channel and I greatly appreciate it. All right, on to the target for your 40s. And this is where things start to get serious. It's your peak earning decade, but it's also your peak spending decade. Mortgage, kids, all that fun stuff. Now, using those same comfortable retirement standards, the target for age 40 is $168,000. And by age 45, it should be $226,000. Again, the reality check is the average 45-year-old is nowhere near these numbers. The gap's now getting wider. And it's a decade where you make a conscious decision to either put momentum towards your superannuation or accept falling further and further behind. Here are the things that you should be focusing on. Embrace salary sacrificing. This is your catch-up superpower. You ask your employer to pay a bit of your pre-tax salary to your super fund. These contributions get taxed at a flat 15% as opposed to your normal taxation rate, which can be as high as 45%. It's a win-win. You pay less tax now and boost your retirement savings. Review your insurance. Income and disability protection insurance is incredibly important in your 40s. But you need to make sure you're not paying for cover that you don't need, because that's wasted fees that could be going to work for you. Take 30 minutes to review your policy. Ask yourself, does this still work for me? Is this what I need? Am I able to save some money? Use catch-up contributions. If your superannuation balance is under $500,000, you can use catch-up contribution credits from the last 5 years. This is a fantastic tool if you've taken a career break or had some low-income years, and you can make big tax-effective contributions to your super. If you want to know how many contribution credits you presently have, log on to your ATO portal on the MyGov website and click Super and Contribution Credits, and it'll tell you what you have remaining and what's expiring at the end of this year. All right, section 4, the target for your 50s. And this is the preservation era, because when you reach age 60, you can finally access your super. The focus now shifts from all-out growth to growth, but also protecting what you've built. And the targets for this push are $296,000 by age 50 and a hefty $377,000 by age 55. And because of compound interest, this is where the gap really starts to widen from people that have done nothing about their retirement to people that have really focused on it. Your 50s are about maximizing opportunity. And hopefully a lot of big cost items like raising kids and paying off the house have now largely passed. This should free up more cash to funnel directly into your super. The strategies from here get a little bit more complex, but they're still incredibly powerful. Each year, the Australian government sets a maximum that you can contribute into your super for that given year. In your 50s, you should target hitting this cap each year through a contribution of your employee super contributions and salary sacrifice. Consider after-tax contributions. This is particularly effective if you've come into a lump sum of money. Maybe you've received an inheritance, maybe you've downsized your home. You can make large after-tax contributions. Now, you may not get a tax break on the way in, but any earnings from that money are taxed at that super low 15% rate, which is a huge long-term win. Explore a transition to retirement strategy. Once you hit the preservation age, a TTR can be game-changing. It lets you draw an income from your super whilst you're still working. You can use it to reduce your work hours without losing income, or to maintain your income whilst heavily salary sacrificing for those massive tax advantages. This is complex and it's absolutely worth seeking proper financial advice about, but it's certainly worth looking into. So we've gone through this decade by decade. But what's the actual final number? According to the ASFA, for a comfortable retirement, a single person needs around about $600,000 and a couple around $700,000 in super by age 67. And remember, these numbers are routinely updated to account for things like inflation. So those numbers are going to climb over time. And in the context of this, a comfortable retirement means private health, a decent car, a roof over your head, and the ability to do some form of travel. Now, if you want a more comfortable retirement than that, then you're obviously going to need more super than the ASFA is recommending. Now, if you're nowhere near those numbers, it's not all doom and gloom. There's no need to panic just yet. There is an alternative strategy that will allow you to retire with super of around about $300,000. Jeremy, how is that possible? You've just told me that I need $600,000. How can I retire with half that? It's a valid point, but this is because it considers using the age pension. Under this scenario, we're considering that our super is going to do most of the work early on, and then we're going to rely heavily on the age pension in our later years in life. Now, personally, I don't want to ever have to rely on the age pension because I'd like to have a more baller retirement than most. But I appreciate there's circumstances that mean that some people don't have a choice. And this is fantastic news because it means that you don't necessarily need a massive super balance to enjoy a retirement. You just need to focus on the amount of money you need to bridge the gap between the age pension and whatever lifestyle you envision having or wanting in your later years. All right, let's recap so everyone's on the same page. The numbers you need to hit: age 30, $67,000. Age 40, $168,000. And age 50, $296,000. If you're looking at these numbers and you're feeling a little bit sick, just take a deep breath. This isn't about being perfect, this is about being proactive. The numbers are only scary if you don't have a plan and if you do nothing. And just remember, this video is a guide. The ATO regularly changes the rules around concession caps, contributions, and all that fun things. It's important that before you make any decisions that you read all the information thoroughly, and I'll leave a link to the ATO website below that explains a little bit more about some of the concepts we've talked about today. Thanks for watching, everyone. I look forward to seeing you in the next video.